Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time of day it is as you watch the video, but I want to welcome you to this conversation. So today we're going to be having a musical conversation. Now, I'm making this video strictly for those who've approached me and say they want to learn piano. And I just want us to begin that journey today, or maybe continue, because maybe we've probably had conversation prior to this. These are the basics that I wish I knew when I began my musical piano playing journey. I'm self-taught, but along the years, I picked up things here and there, and it has helped me understand music or play piano with understanding, and it gives you much control. And music really, when it comes to the piano, is you either replicating a sound you heard someone else play, or just being able to play the sound you have in your head. Now, for me, because I play by ear, it's been about getting the sound out of my head and being able to reproduce it on the piano, you understand, on the keyboard, whatever you call it. The idea is the more you understand, the more you have a basic understanding of how things are working, how the notes are coming together, the more you can do that more easily, with confidence and with precision. So today we are going to be basically diving into the basics to understand and to know before we dive into the whole creation process and begin or continue the journey of playing. Now, this is more knowledge sharing, and I just want to warn that when it comes to music, there's really no standard as much as there's a level of standardization, because we have different countries, different systems of approaching music in terms of like how to read, understand it. I learned tonic solfa, right? But within the Western spaces, we mostly use staff notation. So I want there to be an open-mindedness. This is more my perspective, or how I've learned it, or how I understand it. So be open-minded as you learn about this, and be able to understand that one way does not necessarily conflict with a different way. It's just a different perspective or a different way of approaching things. That's all it is. And with that, I want to add another spiritual layer to say music being played in many different ways across cultures and across continents, if you like. The idea is this is how the people within those spaces have interacted with music. And I believe that music is coming from God. It's an experience that we are having that God has enabled us to have. And the way it comes out is so much based on our uniqueness, our unique spaces, the kind of instruments we create and things like that. So that being said, the same song can be played in many different ways. And one way of playing something may not necessarily mean that is better. And one way of playing music may not necessarily be better than a different way. It may just appeal to different people because, again, of how they were brought up, culture and things like that. So, for example, Western European way of playing music will be a little bit more conservative, a little bit plain with piano and violin, not so much drums, very conservative, especially when it comes to the spiritual Christian space, tapa hymn kind of songs, classical music in a way. But then you come to spaces like Africa, more things are added into it because we have different drums, different type of instruments that we are using. Now, when you go to black churches within United States, it gets a little bit even more chaotic, it may seem. Does it mean that the Western way of playing music is more holier than the black church way of playing music? What if we just approach it as just a different way? Even when you go to Africa, we are working with different types of ways of dealing with music because we're working with different instruments. If you go to Nigeria, they have so many types of drums, so many types of musical instruments that are not necessarily the ones we may have in Rwanda or South Africa. We have about 50 something countries, and all of these have their uniqueness, a little bit of a different touch and way of approaching music. So I just want to say there's no one standard spiritual pure way that is validated or that is better and above all the other ways of approaching music. When it comes to styles and instruments and things like that, the piano is not holy than the guitar or the drum, whatever the case. I'm just saying this because it becomes a thing. Especially we become biased because we may grow up in a certain way. Like I grew up playing the piano mostly in the churches that I was going to. Does it mean that if someone now brings bass guitar and adds electric into it, then it becomes a little bit chaotic? What if we add drums? What if now we bring the Nigerian way of actually approaching music. How does that make me feel? You have to keep your biases and prejudice in check. This will, of course, not just help your learning process, but also help your way of interacting with different people who are coming from different spaces with different approaches to music. So sometimes when a person plays one way, you almost feel the need to stop them and be like, hey, you gotta do it this way, but there's no standard way. Let's be subjectively objective, where we can actually accept and see ourselves to say we are actually prejudiced towards certain things. Like, I'm inclined to play music a certain way, and that's okay. Someone else will approach the same music in a different way, and that's also fine. You understand? And so I just want to start this conversation by putting that down, so that we understand that if we are playing music, if we are interacting with certain music, it's all rooted in what we know, what we've grown up hearing, what we've interacted with. That's what makes up our musical taste, right? And so someone else who has different experiences, different culture, different upbringing, different kind of like life events that happen to them, may actually interact with music differently, or even like different music altogether, and that's totally fine. This is not to say every type of music goes, every type of music is okay, because there are things that just go beyond style. But the idea is, there's a level at which we can have this conversation and understand that all types of music is okay to a level, and especially if it's because it's coming from a different culture. The Rwandese way of playing music is maybe a little bit different from the South African or Malawian, you understand, and the Zimbabwean way and the Western way, and all of this coming together bring in a little bit of something. So let's stay curious, let's stay open-minded, less judgmental, less prejudiced, and let's keep our biases in check as we approach music, as we learn. And this principle kind of applies to everything else. Keep your prejudices in check, okay? Now that we've got that out of the way, today we're going to be specifically talking about the piano. Now, I know you can look on my screen and you think, or you see there's so many keys, but in actual reality, the piano only has about 12 distinct keys, which represent 12 distinct notes that are just repeated over and over at different pitches. So for example, this note is the same as this note, the same as this note, the same as this note, just at different pitches. That's really all it is. So if we can understand these 12 keys, these 12 pitches, these 12 distinct notes, understand them, it will help us navigate the whole piano, the whole 88 keys, or whatever the amount of keys you're working with ease and confidence, because you'll be working from a place of understanding. You'll not be thrown off because we've just shifted an octave down or whatever, or you're working with the piano that may be arranged a little bit different. So I want you to be able to approach the piano with confidence and understanding, knowing what you're working with. You understand? So here's an idea. We are going to look at those 12 notes, 12 keys, okay? Now, we have white 7 keys, right? Which are namely C, and then D, and then you have E, and then you have F, you have G, you have A, and you have B, and you begin again with C. Now you see on my screen there it has numbers, which those numbers are really kind of indicating which octave are we dealing with, right? So for example, when I begin from the beginning, this is my piano. This is literally the first C, so it's going to have 0. The second C will be the first C, then this one is second. You see, that's the third octave that we are working with. This is the fourth octave, you understand? So that's kind of how it works. Now, the concept here is the way I just went down like that. Every time I complete that progression or sequence of those, I'll say 7 notes, and the last one, which makes it really 8 notes, it creates what we call an octave. So if I go, that's an octave. And an octave makes up what a scale is. So A scale really is a sequence of notes spanning an octave. You understand? They are arranged in a specific pattern of intervals. And when we say intervals, it means, I don't know if you did sets and sequences. The idea is there is from where we begin, what is the distance or what happens in between the first and the second and subsequent notes that you are playing. So for example, all the notes I just played, the sequence I've played is known as the major scale. So look at this again and observe. So I go. So if you observed, between the white keys we have the black keys, and it's almost like I start here and then I skip one black note and I play the next and I skip another one black note. That's the interval, you understand? And then here I'm not skipping anything, I'm going to the next note, and then here I skip another black note, and then I skip another black note, and then I skip another black note, and then I'm not skipping anything, I'm beginning again. Now this is what the major scale is. You start with a complete step. So within music, when we say a whole step, it means that between the note and the other one, there is a note between, right? So like this is one whole step, and then another whole step. But because there's nothing between E and F, it's a half step. And then we have another whole step between F and G, and then G and A, another whole step, another whole step, half a step. So you see there that the major scale pattern is basically a whole step, half a step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half a step. That's really what it is. And again, we're going to look at other scales which go by different rules, and it's all going to be about the interval. So let's talk about the black keys before we proceed though. So you see how I've said we have the white keys. So the black keys are technically incomplete notes because they are all half steps, because this is half step from this one. So this is C sharp. What C sharp is C plus half a step. This is D sharp or E flat. What it is one step above D, D sharp, one step below E, E flat. So it's a sharp when it's a step above, it's a flat when it's a step below. You get the idea? So what would this be? You can see it on the screen. If it has the hashtag sign, it's a sharp. If it has that almost like a B sign, that's a flat. Now you see when I go, all these notes, some of them are referred to as flats, some of them as sharps. But the idea is all of these notes can be referred to one way or the other. Why? Because this is technically D flat, but it's also C sharp. So this is E flat like it shows on the screen, but it's also D sharp. This is F sharp, but it's also an F, it's also G flat. So I'm saying when you are dealing with music and you see it, people are going to refer it to different ways, and both of them are correct because they are all true, right? Because this is technically, you can look, it depends with how you're looking at it. It's a step above F, or you can refer it to as a step below G. So if a person asks you, which note am I playing now? You can either say, oh, he's actually playing the note step above F, or you can say he's playing the note half step below G. That's basically the idea, right? So half step, half step, half steps. But then you understand now that really all we are working with is 7 white keys, black 5 keys, repeated over and over. So we have like, and then we start again. You see? And then we go again. See? So you see, it's just repeating. And for those who are coming from the singing space, you'll know that soprano will be on the higher octave, right? Most soprano voices will be around here, right? I know some high soprano can come even here. See? But then alto will be somewhere around here. And some high tenor can also be around here. You understand? Depending on who's singing. It could be male tenor. Male tenor will most likely be here though, because this is not bass yet, but some people's baritone will be around this octave. You understand? This we're talking about pitch, which is really frequency. And here already we are working with baritone, but also it could be bass depending on who's singing. But this is definitely bass. You understand? You get the idea? So the reason why we have pitches is because people have different frequencies. Their voices sound like, you know, someone can have a low voice or a high voice, whatever the case. And so when you look at the piano now, you have to think piano, well, technically is a string instrument from how it was made, but now we have the digital version of it. So we can simply think piano is an instrument with 12 distinct notes that are repeated over and over different pitches. Combining these pitches together, forming things like chords and playing them in certain patterns is what makes music. Okay? Now, we've already talked about the 12 keys, and we know that consequently, because we only have 12 keys on the piano, songs can technically begin at one of those keys. And this will bring us to a place of talking about key or scale. Really, what a key is, which is a scale, is an arrangement, a progression of specific notes in a pattern that is a place where you can play a song all together. So let's think about the scale of C, which we just went over several times. So it goes like this. What that means is this is the whole scale of C when I'm playing one note at a time. I can play any song using those 8 notes if you like. However, I may need to play them at different pitches, which now we will talk about octaves, which we just talked about. So if I wanted to play a song like Jesus Loves Me, I can play it in C. What it really means is play it in the scale of C. Someone tell me, give me the song of Jesus Loves Me, but play it in the scale of C. It will be like, that's the whole song in the scale of C. So this arrangement of notes we have is enough to play as any song within that scale. Okay? Again, remember that music is not just notes. There's other things that make music, like rhythm, and there's drums and patterns, things like that adds the different flavor to music. But with this, you can technically play the melody of every song, if that makes sense. So this is the melody. We are not talking about all the other things that make a whole song a song. Now, with this understanding, because we have the scale of C that starts from C, we technically have a scale for every key. And because we only have 12 keys, 12 distinct keys, we only have 12 scales, which means there's a scale that starts here, there's a scale that starts here, there's a scale that starts here, that starts here, that starts here, here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. When the classical piano was made, there was no such thing as transposing. You could only transpose by physically playing those keys. You couldn't press a button on the piano to transpose. For example, if I say play Jesus Loves Me, like the way I just played it, but if you told me like, oh no, that's too high for me, can you bring it low? I just need to press a key here. See how if I press a key on my piano here, now it's gonna say it's B, right? But I'm physically pressing the same key. So I can even go lower and I'll play the same song. You see, I'm playing the same song, but it's sounding much lower. But now, if I didn't have to use transpose, I need to physically be able to play the same scale from that key. So for example, this is the key of C. If we said let's do it in the key of D, I need to be able to play it here. You understand? But then this is where now the whole half step, whole step kind of thing comes in, because we know that for major scale the pattern will be, so think about it in this way. We can think about it in 2 2 2. So where 2 means a whole step and 1 means half step. So we'll go, it's 2 2 1 2 2 2 and then 1 at the end. So you go, this is 2 because it's a whole step, and then another 2 because it's a whole step, half step 1, and then 2 because it's a whole step again, a whole step, half a step. So if I was here, all I have to think, what would be a whole step from here? I need to create a 2 and then a 2, so and then see, and then 2, and then it has to be half, and then 2, and then 2, and then 2, and then half. So see, that's the scale of D. If I was here, same concept, because it will be so you get the concept, right? You can literally figure out or play scale from any key if you know the rule. That's all I'm saying. And you can also do from F. So it'll be like, what is a whole step? Another whole step. And then we have half a step, and then a whole 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 step. A half step. So it's 2 2 1 2 2 2 1. Basically that's what it is. Again, I want you, if you have the piano, to practice this. So remember, we said what a whole step means. It means there's a note between. That's really what it means. Half step means there's no note between. When you play, you just play whatever the next note is. So we will try to play, for example, the scale of B. So you start from B. You can start anywhere on the piano and play the scale. So how is it going to go? We're going to go, and then a whole step, and then a whole step, and then half a step, and then a whole step, and then a whole step, and a whole step, and then half a step. So even when we get to talk about chords, the chords are really built on the same pattern. So the more you understand this pattern, the more it will be easy to understand chords and work around chords and play music in a more fuller way. But today we are dealing only with what? Single note, and trying to understand the basics, okay? Now, we know that there's 12 scales, and we know there's only 12 keys, and we know how to figure out the major scale. Now, I just want to say, for most Western music, most music we play it in major scale and minor scale mostly. Of course, there's other scales that kind of add, like diminished and things like that, which we'll talk about. Again, what we say a scale is just an arrangement of notes within a given interval, which we already talked about the major, that it's like 2 2, and then you go 1 2 2 2, and then 1. Now, what is the minor scale? What would it sound like? Let's take a look. So let's talk about the minor scale. So the minor scale has a different pattern. It's 2 1 2 2 1 2 2. So you go do, re, and then from here you go 1 re, then you go to that's what the minor scale sounds like. And I know this may not make so much sense now, but when we start talking about chords, it will, because it sounds completely different. So you go can hear it's tempting to hit the same notes, just sounds different. It sounds different from major, which is. Now that we understand this concept, I want to put another concept on top of it that's going to make things easier. So some people use the number system. Now, if you had to work with the 12 keys and you had to memorize each and every one of them, it's different combination of different keys. For example, you may start from C and now you have to know from C sharp. It can become a little bit too much. Now, to simplify it, the number systems makes things easier. So for example, within the major scale, you understand every note is going to be represented by a number where we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And these black keys can in the same way be represented by numbers 2. Like we already said that this is really C, half a step up. So you can write this as 1 and the sharp, right? And this would be either 3 or 2. 2 sharp, you understand? So it's not that complicated. So we only have 7 numbers, you understand, that we are working with, but we can use those 7 numbers to represent those 12 different notes. And when we get to chords, these same numbers will represent a whole chord. So for example, the chord of C will still be 1, which may be this one. And of course, we'll come to a place of talking about inversions, which the same chord may be started from different place and it's technically the same thing. So this is C, this is C, this is C, this is C. You see? It's an inversion, right? We'll talk about that in a little bit, right? But the idea is when you think about this, you go with the numbers. So let's combine all this together. What we say now, if I'm thinking about the major scale, number 1 is wherever I start. So we are in B now. Number 2 will be a whole step from number 1. Number 3 will be a whole step from number 2. And then number 4 will be half step from number 3. Number 5, a whole step. Number 6, a whole step. Number 7, a whole step. And number 1 is always half step from the last note. You understand? That's how it is. That's how easy. So you're now thinking of things in terms of numbers. Of course, I have all this written down, but I'm giving you an idea. Now you see, you can actually think about things. Even when you play it, I don't care, you memorize it or whatever the case, there's a level of understanding. You're not just doing it, you understand. So, for example, recently, I've had to Google up a song and it was in a different key. It was in the key of E. And I wanted to play it in C. But because I understood the number system, I just had to translate that into C without having to physically transpose the chords into C. Because already I can ask myself, if the song was like, let's say 1, 4, and 5, it means I'm going. See? So I'll ask myself, wait, if I was trying to play the song in E, what is the 1 of E? E will be 1, right? What is 4? We'll know this will be 4, and then 5 will be. See, so I can play the same song like, and I could do that for D. We'll use our formula for figuring out what are the chords. I mean, what are the notes, the arrangement of the note. So we know we'll go. This will be the same concept when we come to chords. And just to give you an idea, if I was playing chords, I would do. I could do even like this. And of course, here I'm demonstrating both the idea of like the octaves, because if I was playing this in a low octave, it would be like, it gives a different feel to the song. All I can do. Now I know you may already be learning chords, but I want to tell you that when it comes to music, and especially the piano, there's different types of playing. There's accompaniment playing, where really you are just playing to accompany the song, not trying to hit every note. So for example, if you thought about the song Amazing Grace, we could play it, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that sings a wretch like me. Your business is not to hit every note. So of course it sounds a little bit plain when I'm doing it like this, but imagine if I was actually playing a lot of notes and I was playing chords, it would be like Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Like, see, what I just did here is an inversion. And what this really means is, instead of playing this, which would be G, I've started it from here. And it sounds a little bit lower than this, which would be higher. So like me. Anyways, we'll get to that part, but I'm just trying to show you. Here you are playing, but you are not really trying to hit every note. But you could play it like this. See, now you're playing every note, right? You're trying to play every note. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. You see? Thou saved a wretch like me. See, now you're playing more notes. All I'm trying to say is there's different ways of playing music, and some is even more stylish, and you are trying to play more other things. We won't even get to that, but I'm trying to say today, just to give you an understanding, an idea, we are just learning that the piano has only 12 notes, 12 keys, black 5 notes, black 5 keys, 7 white notes, 7 white keys, and those are just repeated over and over. And this also make up the 12 scales, and these 12 scales are the places in which you can play a song. So all the songs that we know technically begin at one place within those 12 keys. So if I sing any song, even if I start singing randomly, I may sing like na 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 na. So it's going to be in one of those keys. Na 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 na. See, it's here. Na 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 na. See, it's going to be here. So you as a musician, you can always find any song in one of those keys. Of course, it's a little bit of knowing and a little bit of being able to listen, because we are playing music from our brain, not so much the hands. We need to be able to hear the sound and be able to now play that sound, play the song at the simplest way it is. And this can be easier or harder for some people than others, because some people can actually hear sound and just replicate it. They will know exactly. Some people can even hear a note and they will know exactly where it is. We are gifted differently, but of course, when we learn and we spend our time practicing, we can gain abilities to do things more efficiently, even things that we could not do before, you understand? And this is why we are here. Again, so this is just the basics. And of course, you can now understand that you don't have to think C, D, E, F, G, A, B. You can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. You can say, where are we starting the song? It's in F. You just be like 1, 2, see? 7, 1. Doesn't matter. And that song we're saying, if they ask you to play Amazing Grace the same way I was, you know it's 1, 4, and 5. That's the accompaniment style. So you go Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. You understand? You can basically play a song anywhere. So I'm just trying to say, if you could take time, understand this, and soak it in, you will actually be able to play a song anywhere. So long as you know, it doesn't matter which keys you are working with or which scale. So long as you know you are playing in major, you just need to know which key you're starting from. You know, this is C, this is D, this is E, this is F, this is G, this is A, B. If a person says, play this song in B, doesn't matter, this is B. This is where the song starts. So we know we'll go. And again, this will be the same concept even when you are playing chords, because it will be, you go. So what if I had to play the same song? I would go, Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. See how easy it is? But you understand that even if you were playing chords, it would be the same concept. You just have to go, Amazing grace, how, and then you go, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. See? And later on we'll talk about inversions, because inversions is what makes a song sound nice. Because the same thing I played, it sounds a little bit off, but instead of playing this is, like I said, this is the same chord. This is an inversion of the same chord, right? So it's like, see, now I just did a seventh there. Anyways, we'll learn about these things, but I'm trying to say that music has, like, it's a pattern, right? And the whole thing about music, you are creating patterns, and if you understand how those patterns are being combined, then you can create or even learn piano, play it with much understanding and ease. It will be able to either replicate the sounds you are hearing because you understand the rules by which they are working, or you can actually play the sounds within your head, because you have to translate whatever you have in your head into piano language and be able to play it out so it can sound the same way. So that's our first lesson. Now I want you to be able to practice just going through the scales, and this I want you to do for each and every key. And the reason why I want you to do this is because, as much you can know, music is practice. For example, I spend so much of my time playing most songs in C, so I am very comfortable when I'm playing any song in C, but then I may not be as comfortable with B. Truth is, I hardly play any song in B because I always use transpose, but I'm also comfortable with F, you understand? The idea is, I want you to be able to be comfortably move along all the different scales irrespective. So while we start, we're only playing one note at a time. We're not bothered about chords today. We'll do chords next time. So you have to go. See, I want you to be able to do that, like and then go to this. And then do this for this. Then you go this. I want you to do that for each and every key. You know the formula. I've already told you the formula. Take time. It will be hard. It will be like doing maths. But then practice makes improvement. The more you do it, the more it will sound easy. So I know that most people jump to playing chords, and that's okay. You can. But you will find out that, like me, I started with chords. When you start with chords, sometimes it becomes stiff for you to just play like. Because you are used to playing a lot of keys at the same time, so your brain is like, and then you have to go. If someone else is like, it may be a little bit hard. So if you start with one note, you do that. The more time goes, you will be your hands will get used to moving, right? Moving along the keyboard, right? Moving along the keyboard, and you can move in every scale. You get used to that pattern. It will be very useful when you start playing chords. So today was the first lesson. Today was the first conversation. Not so much bothered about the theory part, but we will talk about minor scale and other types of scale when we get into chords, because that's when it's going to make so much sense, right? Because what happens is, within music today, the way we play most songs combining major scales with minor scales. Occasionally, you will see places where they say this song key is in E minor. For example, you will know it's going to be E. However, we know the formula for minor is from E, we have a whole step, and then half a step, and then a whole step, and then a whole step, and then half a step, and then a whole step, and then a whole step. That's E. And that's how it would sound if it was a chord. Anyways, we'll get to it when we start talking about chords. So if you have questions, talk to me. But I just wanted to sort of demonstrate this and be able to have this conversation just to give you an understanding. I don't want to say a lot of things because it may be confusing. But remember, when it comes to playing piano, it's not how intense you can practice or how intense you can cram or learn. It's about the consistency in practicing that makes a difference. Why most of us or any piano player you'll see can play the way they play, they spend so much years practicing. I started playing piano when I was younger. Of course, I didn't always practice consistently, nor was I actively learning. I was just trying to do what I want. Because again, I was doing it for fun. It wasn't that serious. I didn't go to musical school or anything like that. It was just for fun. But then if you can practice consistently, you will actually know. It will get better with time. At first, it will feel like a nightmare because there may be a disparity between what you want to play and what you can actually play. So what I want you to do is bring your expectations low, relax, chill. This is a journey. Give yourself time. And you may think, oh, I may not have that time. Trust me, if you can squeeze in 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there, before you know it, 2 years later, you can play songs. That's how it works. So if you have any questions, let me know. I really hope that we can be able to learn, because music is fun, and I think it's one of the things that will make you smarter in also other areas because it engages your brain. It's something that can help or does actually help your mental health. So being able to play music is such a cool thing. Keep up the good work, the learning, the playing, and we'll meet next time with the second conversation or lesson if you like. Okay.